Yo, what is going on, my fellow weebs? Chrono here, and welcome back to the channel. So today I'm actually going to be going over a topic that I have seen can be a bit divisive in the PSO2 community. But before we jump into that, if you guys are new here, I'm Chrono, I'm promoted over PSO2. I'm much appreciated subscribers. We're going towards that 10K mark, hopefully by the end of this year. I feel like every time I start getting, or I get the itch to like really push out YouTube content, I have to start with like an apology of not pushing out enough YouTube content in the first place. I'm working on this whole like content, life, balance sort of thing, trying to figure out right now. I've recently kind of got a schedule going over on the Twitch stream that seems to be actually doing fairly well. I want to kind of get into making YouTube content on a more regular basis. So to my YouTube guys, I'm very sorry. I do really want to push out more content, but like I go from having tons of ideas and like trying to get them all recorded to recording them and then hating all of them and then not releasing them. So it's a back and forth that I have to fight with myself all the time, and I'm the only one doing it for myself. So it's quite a bit of work to push into. Either way, I do want to make a renewed effort to go ahead and get this type of content out to you guys. There's a lot I have to say about different aspects of the game. And these are a lot of topics that usually get discussed over on my Twitch stream, but you guys on YouTube don't get to hear about it. So today's a topic, again, that I've probably covered multiple times over my Twitch stream, and it is the cost of upgrading a weapon. Now, for a lot of people, this cost is very unreasonable. They feel like it's way too expensive, that, you know, the cost of like what you actually have to do to upgrade your gear is just absolutely ridiculous, and it's just unfair. When I thought about it at first, I kind of agreed, right? I just saw like the individual costs, and I was like, man, this is brutal. Why is this so rough? But then I really looked into it, and I found that I think I was a bit mistaken, realistically, when it comes to the cost of upgrading weapons. Now, granted, yeah, it is a bit expensive, don't get me wrong, but the actual set of costs, when you're thinking about it, is not an unreasonable ask for some of these weapons that we're going to be using. Now, realistically speaking, if things go, I don't want to say in a perfect world, because it's very rarely ever a perfect world. Realistically speaking, you're making one weapon roughly, maybe two, depending upon what you're playing, every couple of months. Now it's upwards of usually, we're hoping for around 5 months roughly in most situations. Recently hasn't been as long because of the way that they've kind of rebalanced some of the drops. I know some people are feeling a bit of the sting of this 11 star on the horizon right now, when it feels like we just got into our 10 stars, but realistically speaking, our 10 stars have been around for a while. They just finally recently changed up how they dropped and how we acquired a lot of them. So it makes it feel like we just recently got a hold of them, when in reality, they've been around for quite some time. The time frame of when we get an 11 star actually does make sense, looking back on, you know, when the 10 stars came out. So now with that understanding, you know, the fact this weapon's coming out, I'm a little bit less annoyed about it. I'm more so annoyed about like the augmenting situation or side of things. That's gonna be a different topic altogether. But say we're talking about the cost of actually setting your weapon up, because when it comes down to augmenting, you don't have to go super hard these days. They've made it very, very easy, very straightforward, and very inexpensive to set up each and every weapon without going for best in slot immediately. You can get quite a bit of, you know, power just off the rip from the very get-go. And honestly, it's a nice welcome change, where, you know, when a new weapon came out, the biggest concern was like, hey, how am I going to augment this thing if I can't really even afford to set it up? I can't even use the new weapon, right? It really was kind of a bummer. It made new weapons not feel super exciting, and with the addition of the LC augments, that was actually a really nice change. Well, fast forward a bit, and we've got, you know, the next Lucille around the horizon. Hopefully that's going to be reinvigorating or just boosting up some of those LC augments, to be a bit more on par with some of the new stronger augments we've gotten recently. Either way, I wanted to talk about what we really need to look into, and that is the cost of upgrading the weapon. So when you get a weapon, there's a few things that you need to kind of keep in mind. First and foremost is getting that weapon to plus 80. Getting it to plus 80 is going to give us the most amount of damage we can get from the weapon, the actual base damage. It's where, you know, units are less important to get to plus 80. Weapons are very important to get to plus 80, because you want as much of that base damage as possible. Next important thing here we have here is the potential. The potential is where a lot of your damage is coming from. So unlocking that potential is key. It's very, very important to making sure you get as much damage out of your weapon as you possibly can. Even if you can't upgrade your weapon to max, but you have the ability to upgrade your potential, I would argue upgrading your potential can be sometimes even more impactful than upgrading the base damage of your weapon. It depends. Of course, there's math involved, and I can't tell you that it's a hard and fast rule across the board, but those are kind of the two biggest ones, which also brings about two of the biggest pain points for players when they're upgrading their weapons. It's the limit break cost and the cost for potential upgrades. Now, there's a really nifty tool over on the Visiphone site. I'm not sure if the other wiki that's being worked on has it just yet. I haven't checked personally. I will be in the future, but if they do have it, super cool. I'll make sure to leave it linked in the video description. But there's a really cool set of charts that the Visiphone has that kind of gives us a bit more information at the costs of what it actually takes to upgrade these weapons. So I'm going to pop over to the Visiphone site, back here in just a moment. All right, so here we are over on the Visiphone site. In case you're curious of where we found this information, just scroll on down. And I believe if you select, where is it? Limit breaking right here. It'll take you over to the limit break chart, which takes you over to this page here, which actually includes everything you really need to know. Item enhancing, the amount and values you get increases, the augment levels, where you get like the augmentation bonus. That's why I said like with armor, just getting into 61 is enough. So we get that 6 augmentation slot. When it comes to damage, that's the most important. And then the cost of upgrading, you can see that it is, it's different across different levels of gear. So when we're looking at limit breaking, again, the two more important, the potential unlocking and limit breaking, you can see that there's quite a bit of meseta that goes into this, and it's a bit expensive. But keep in mind, we're looking at what's going to be our best in slot weapon, or at the time is our best in slot weapon that we're using of upwards of like 4 to 5 months. In a perfect world. Again, I understand some people got to this party a little bit late. Rayars only just recently came out, so on and so forth. But again, this is more of like a pain point for now in this transition period. Just hang in there. I get the feeling that things are going to be a bit more ironed out moving forward now that they've kind of taken care of the whole drop rate situation, assuming they continue the path that they have essentially set up right now. Again, that's a big assume. Fingers crossed. That tends to be that continues forward. We saw a pretty awesome turnaround with Rayar. Hopefully that continues forward. But either way, you can see the costs here are a little bit high, right? So we got 200K, 220K, and 220K respectively. When you're looking at a 10-star weapon, you only need to upgrade from 60 to 80. Everything else is already unlocked. So these are your costs you're looking at. It's about 600. Well, I say about, but it's 640K for just the cost of limit breaking. Now, I'm not even paying attention to the items here because they give you so many of these. I haven't even thought about needing arms refiner to use any more arms refiners. You just get them for every piece of content that you play. Even if you just do your dailies like I have been for the past like 2-3 weeks, and then doing other stuff, I still have tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of these. The only time this is ever an issue is like when you're at the very beginning of your account and you're making your very first one. And even then, you probably have quite a few of these from first time rewards and other types of things. So this isn't even a question. It's just the meseta cost that we're looking at here. 640K. Again, I don't think that's that bad, realistically speaking, when you're talking about a weapon you're going to use for one of your best weapons or your best weapon in the game. So that's totally understandable. And this is probably going to increase, that you'll see this scale up as 11 stars come out. Maybe hopefully by that 10K, right? Like it's been 10K each time. Hopefully it's just by 10K across the board. We can see 10K here, 10K here, and 10K here. So that's 30K overall. So fingers crossed that this will just be 670K for our 11 stars whenever we get a hold of those. Either way, moving past that, we have potential unlocking. Potential unlocking has a few more steps. We're going from, of course, level 1 all the way to level 6. Now, again, a lot of these items, you're just gonna have tons of them. Like do your daily, your daily mining routes, grab your mine in. You're gonna have everything that you realistically need. If you're running low on NX cubes, you can turn the class cubes into NX cubes. So you shouldn't have too much of a difficulty there, or just generally play the game. You will level up or over level your character, and that will give you a ton of X cubes as well. It's hard to level. Like I level randomly while doing my dailies. I level randomly while in like a combat zone. Like you get tons of this stuff as you're actively playing. If you're not, I can see where they might be a bit more difficult, but again, even just taking care of your dailies, you'll get enough of this in time. So what we're looking at is the meseta costs: 100K, 200K, 300K, 400K, 400K, and 500K, which does come out to be 1.9 mil. That feels a bit more steep. However, again, best weapon in the game, best weapon you can technically use. This is what you're setting up at the moment, right? So 1.9 mil is what we're looking at here in cost. So if we're just looking between our potential unlocking and our limit breaking, looking at roughly 2.5 mil. When you think about it that way, 2.5 mil is not a hard ask. It's not difficult when you're looking at upgrading your weapon and it's to max. That is max limit breaking, max potential unlocking. However, that's not just it. We also need to upgrade our weapon with the actual experience amount that it needs to go ahead and get upgraded, right? Gotta upgrade the level of our weapon. Gotta go from 1 all the way to 80. This is where a lot of people are like, well, this is where it's expensive. This is where it's really going to cost you a ton. And they are sort of right. This is technically the most expensive part outside of augmenting. This is more expensive than limit breaking. This is more expensive than potential unlocking. This is where the cost really comes in, and I'm gonna go ahead and break it down for you guys and how we're looking at this. So the thing about the upgrade process is there's a little bit of RNG involved, and it's not really like RNG against you. It's more RNG in your favor and saving you money. So I can't give you an exact what this is going to cost you. I can just give you what I would consider the worst case scenario. Basically, if you don't get lucky ever, you don't have any upgrade stuff, you don't do this during any sort of events, if you basically never get the the double bonus, which gives you a double the experience you normally get, which is super awesome. If you don't get that bonus, then this is what you would end up having to pay. So let's start out with our upgrades, our fodder, how it actually works. So when you're using a piece of fodder to upgrade your gear, it goes through a few calculations. First is its star rarity value. The star rarity value actually goes based on the base item cost. So star rarity value with base item cost, the meseta you're actually spending, is based on the weapon you're upgrading, not the piece of fodder that you're using. The piece of fodder you're using does give you the experience amount, and there's also the same type item experience bonus, which I'll explain in a second here. But the actual weapon is what the cost comes up to be, right? So it's always going to be per fodder is 5.5K. That's what's going to cost per fodder we put into the weapon. Cost is 5.5K in meseta. Now, with the actual items we're using as fodder, it's very common that people are going to use gold prim weapon 2 or gold prim armor 2. Cost of this, the difference here doesn't matter, because if you're smart, all you do is take the armor. If it's the cheaper one, purchase that, and you can turn it into just this augment here. And then you can turn the augment into the weapon, which means you don't spend any extra money. So the fact that these are two different prices on market boards, which there are different prices on our market as well, is just stupid. People can either up the price or they can lower the price down, but some people just take advantage of people being lazy and not paying attention to the cost. Also, you can just buy the Endemio augment, which you can turn into the weapon or armor, and it's usually the price of whatever the cheapest one is. So at least on ship 2 as of right now, apologies if this changes because I'm releasing this video. As of right now on ship 2, these are 5K a piece. So we're going to value this at about 5K, is what it's going to cost per fodder that we use, right? So we know it's going to cost a base cost of 5.5K for using a fodder. We know it's going to cost us 5K per fodder we use. And then on top of that, you have to include the grinder, which grinders are plentiful. They'll cost you 1K if you don't have any. You need to purchase one off of another player. It's 1K. So let's say a worst case scenario, you're looking at 11K per fodder that you use. Well, how many fodder do we need to upgrade something from 1 all the way to 80? Cool thing, we also have a chart for that too. Did I pass it? Hang on. Passed it, didn't I? I did pass it. Okay, cool. So we have the experience required chart. The experience required chart lets us know what it costs to get something from 0 to 80. And it gives us a grand total. Well, 10-star weapon is 20,136,500. And if we do a little bit of math here, that works out to being roughly 199.6 fodder pieces. And so we know we can't have a 0.6 fodder. Let's just round it up to 200. So we now know that our fodder's use is going to cost us 11.5K in a worst case scenario. And we will need 200 of them in a worst case scenario. So if we did a little bit of math, now there might be some on screen. I don't know. It depends on how fancy I want to feel while I'm editing. I'm not going to lock myself in anything particular because I want to get this video out as soon as possible. But if we did a bit of math, what that's going to tell us is our grand total cost, if we're looking at worst case scenario, having to buy all of our stuff together, right? We don't have anything extra, all meseta value. Even if you don't buy anything, by the way, things still have meseta value if you can sell them. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'll just farm it. And then it has, no, that's not how value works. Regardless of you farming something, whether you have to farm it or whether you just buy it off of the market, the item itself still has a value if it can be sold. This is something that I've seen happen across so many games. It's insane to me. It blows my mind. I don't understand how people can have this thing. It's like, hey, I found $10. So this $10 doesn't have a value anymore. I can spend it freely. No, that $10 is still $10. how it works, but a rant for another day. But anyway, we're looking at all the math that we're looking at here. Again, I'll go over one more time since I just ranted and went on a side tangent. 11.5K per fodder used, 200 fodder we need. We're looking at 2.3 mil. So 2.3 mil in upgrade costs from 0 all the way up to 80. Sounds expensive, right? It's kind of rough. Let's perspectivize things a bit. So if we take that 2.3 mil, we then add it to the 1.9 mil that we need and the 640K that we need, we're looking at a grand total of 4.84 mil. So 4,840,000 meseta. That is the full cost of upgrading a weapon from base all the way to max with limit breaking and potential unlocking. And that is the most expensive it can be, because that's basically that's a situation where you are the absolute most unlucky possible. Anytime you get a proc of a great success, anytime that you have a great success plus 100%, that cuts the cost in half of that specific edition. And that's, you can only use 5 at a time. So basically it takes 5 of them and it makes them worth 10. So you end up saving a bit of money overall. So we're looking at worst case scenario, 4.8 mil. 4.8 mil meseta can be made in less than 5 hours. So again, perspectivize. This is all costs before augmenting. The most expensive augment you can put on your gear right now, not counting the Defi augments, because I don't count them the same as the other augments. Defi augments I take and I count them, their value divided by 10, because you only need one of them as opposed to every other augment to get the full value of it. You need 10. I know people don't always augment with 10 of them. They augment with 1 in RNG in a lot of cases, but that's just so we're on the same playing field when it comes to augments. But the most expensive augment right now is Gland Gigas Maste. And that augment alone is 6.6 mil. The one augment of a tenth of its cost, right? So one augment, right? Just one Gland Gigas Maste is 6.2 mil. So it's basically 6 mil. It costs more by itself than the entire weapon does to upgrade and set up. And you're like, that's because that augment's expensive. All right. So on average, a type 2 piece of baseware will cost you anywhere between 4 to 7 mil in a lot of cases for decent baseware that come out in the game. Now I know type 1's cheaper, of course. Most people play type 2, that's just how it is. But we're talking about fashion that a vast majority of the player base uses and purchases. Is more expensive than it costs to get the best weapon you can use in the game for your character to its max upgrade before you start adding augments. When you think of it this way, it perspectivizes things. It's actually not that bad to upgrade a weapon. The biggest problem when it comes down to it is the perspective of value. It seems like you're spending a ton of money on a weapon because of what's required of those weapons. A lot of players play more than one class, meaning that they need another weapon for their class. A lot of players play classes that require multi-weapons, meaning they're going to tack on an extra 500K to this cost off the rip of having the privilege of not having to rank up another weapon. These are actually the things that tend to be a bit of a problem. I've always said from the very beginning, the multi-weapon system is too expensive. I don't like it. I don't like the fact that you have to spend 500K almost just to be able to use 2 weapons together. I understand how much it's saving you. I get that. But there are a lot of classes that are designed in a way currently where if you don't have that secondary weapon tied onto your first one, you might as well be playing with one arm tied behind your back. Not really fair. It doesn't seem like it makes much sense overall. So when you're looking at costs, like, 600K, 1.9 mil, something like this being about 2.3 mil, those seem pretty high because of everything else tacked along with it. If it was just the weapon by itself, wouldn't really be that bad. To ask maybe 5 mil of your player base, 5 hours worth of farming every 4 to 5 months, even if it was every 3 to 4 months, right? Let's say worst case scenario was like 2 to 3 months, 3 to 4 months, right? It's not that much of an ask. You can make all of this by doing your dailies between that time. Like, in doing my dailies in probably, I want to say 2 weeks, if even that, just the daily money, I would have made this. That's without even trying. That's what I mean when I say the whole perspective on weapon upgrade costs is blown out of proportion. There are a lot of things and there are issues in the game currently that are causing this to feel a lot worse. I totally understand that. But this isn't it. At least not in my perspective. What do you guys think? Should there really be a cost, a Meseta Sync cost on this? Should it just be that it's free, right? Like it doesn't cost you anything, just cost the resources. There is a camp of people that believe that currently the cost that you have here, like this, it shouldn't cost Meseta, just cost these resources. I'll be real with you. If it didn't cost any Meseta, this would be free. This would be totally free because these resources are nothing. You get them for free through just playing itself. It would basically be free. The only cost you'd be looking at is the item enhancement process. And maybe that's the way to do it. Maybe that's what the player base feels like is fair. But as far as the time investment to money investment of what it costs making a weapon, I don't think it's that egregious. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. How would you like to see this weapon or the system be different? Would you like there be no Meseta cost that's involved in it? I mean, I'm sure everyone wants everything to be free because that's an epidemic in the PSO2 community all itself. We'll talk about in another video. Yeah, this is a new thing for me. I want to see what you guys think. Like if you enjoyed, everyone keep up with more, and I'll see you all next time. Take care, my friends. Peace out.